This is Haruki Nakamura, former Baltimore Raven and Carolina Panther, and this is the NFL Players Second Acts podcast.
I'm Peanut Tillman, and this is the NFL Players Second Acts podcast. And with me, as always, is my guy, Roman Harper. I ain't even got no jokes for you today. I'm just
okay. Good.
You ironed a shirt for me today, so I
did.
was just like,
everybody check that out. I bust that thing down for my guy.
Cool.
Took all the wrinkles out of it. It's real creased up.
You gave me $30 last night from a taxi ride.
I did give you $30
for the
last
tip,
night
so
too.
I'm
really taking care of you lately.
Our next guest has an impeccable resume. Played 6 years in the NFL, few years in Baltimore, played a year here in Carolina. After the NFL, he's done some work in the media space and in the investment world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Haruki Nakamura. Did I say that right?
You did. Thanks.
I was kind of nervous about that. I was like, I don't want to jack up this dude's name. Like, how many times have people destroyed that last name?
Oh, dude, it's awful. And the funny thing is, like I said before, it's spelled Haruki. So it's Haruki, right?
Yeah.
Simple as it gets. People don't think it is.
No, is there like a nickname you go by? Or?
Rookie, man.
Rookie.
Rookie's
Yeah, so I really thought it was way more because I've seen you from afar. You played safety. You played in the division with me. I also saw you in Baltimore. So, safeties, you kind of just pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
Who plays your position.
Always.
So when we saw each other earlier, we hugged it up like we've known each other for years.
Man.
First time meeting.
I think that's the best dynamic of being a former player because we spoke before, we're only one person away from really knowing each other.
Yeah, that's true.
When you make the world of the NFL, I mean, it's a fraternity that's unlike any other. So it's a special place, and I really appreciate you guys having me.
So tell me this. So where does playing the NFL, where does that stack up as far as accomplishments in your family? Because hold and foremost, let's go down the line here, right?
Read that resume.
Yeah, because the resume of the family, we talked about Haruki, but he ain't that high up compared to everybody else in the family. Number one, all right, he comes from a family of high achievers. Mom is a 4th degree black belt in judo.
Yep.
All right. Your dad is an 8th degree black belt in judo, which I don't even know how you get the 8. You're going to get that first. Tell me that too. And then you have 3 brothers. 2 are international judo champs, and one is an actor. Your sister is also a national judo champ.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, we could
ass whooping.
We could spend a whole show on my family alone. I always say, my family, we had an interesting dynamic, and from a legacy standpoint, my dad was sent from Kodokan in Japan to teach judo all around the world.
Oh, wow.
He was at one point one of the greatest instructors of judo.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend a lot of people do some research on the sport of judo, and you start realizing it's not a sport; it's a lifestyle.
Right.
It's a cultural commitment. So you talk about my dad's 8th degree black belt. That's not necessarily for performance, but it's based on the commitment that you give to a sport and the lifestyle that it teaches you and gives you. And so there's a lot of those things that we were able to apply in our own individual rights and the things that we did. To talk about my family, my dad died when I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I always start out by saying I'm the biggest mama's boy there is. People ask about, what was your why? What was your motivation? Well, my brother was 13, my dad died, and I will always say that he was affected differently than I was because he lost a father.
Yeah.
And when you're 5 years old, you don't really understand that concept, right? I mean, we all have kids now. And so I was heavily affected by the pain and struggle of my mother. And I got to see a woman on a daily basis not make excuses, never cry in front of us. So culturally, as a family, we were as wealthy as anybody in the world. You couldn't tell us how to live our lives because we proudly, through judo, lived this life of high standard. Now we had nothing financially; we were broke. There's no money in judo, but it can make you feel like you have everything in the world. So.
It's this lifestyle commitment.
Oh man!
What's the lifestyle though?
Yeah, because I've never heard anybody
say
that.
If you again, I highly recommend people read about judo, especially how Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, founded judo. Judo is, I would describe as chess, right? There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot. You move a piece to make a piece move, right? Like there's a lot of anticipation. And judo is 100% one of the most athletic and dynamic sports in the entire world. The biggest thing is in the book, some of the books some of the writings that he has, he talks about using judo to problem solve. Judo is the gentle way, right? It's not about using force, it's about understanding how to anticipate, strategize, manipulate, and all this stuff. While at the same time, it's teaching you all this stuff within something you could physically do. Right. You can apply a lot of these things to everyday life, and so it's almost like a religion in a certain way too. So it's, fortunately we had that. And my mom, the funny thing is, I could see the way my mom lived the rest of her life. Or my mom's still alive now, but the rest of her life through the tough times, right, where she simply just used judo, saying, I need to make this decision right now. It may be a hard decision now, but I know it'll affect a positive way tomorrow. And it's every day you're slowly making those decisions. So as a young kid, that was what I was exposed to. It wasn't, there's, Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers talks about the 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
My 10,000 hours were seeing my mom on a daily basis on very little money, doing everything she can just to give her kids one opportunity. Yeah. And, my mom batted 1,000 in the worst of circumstances. My oldest brother, his 3 daughters are internationally competitive in snowboarding. Okay. They, 2 of them have graduated with engineering degrees and work for aerospace tech companies. The youngest one's probably the smartest. Yeah. Then my next, yeah. Which my, is how it normally goes. Right. My next oldest brother, my brother Yoshi, he was my dad's dream for him was to be the first United States Olympic gold medalist in judo. And so Kayla Harrison recently broke that streak. But, he was an 8-time national judo champion. I can remember times my dad, he posted in our little patio, he posted this telephone pole. He tied a rubber inner tube, tire inner tube to this pole and would make my brother do thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. And these are things that you see and you're like, holy cow. Yeah. But then when he goes out there and executes and wins and, he ended up, like I said, being an 8-time national champ. After my dad died, we ended up going to a high school, Lakewood St. Edward High School, which, right now is probably one of the top high schools in the country. Always kind of has been, but they've really excelled. I think they've won the last, I think it's 35 of the last 37 state championships in wrestling. I think they've won 6 of the last 10 state championships in football. Like it's a place where standards are very high. Right. And so, my mom couldn't afford it, but they were willing to take a risk on a family who has very good culture, really good people. And so that was something that was pretty life-changing for my brother and I. He ended up being a 2-time state champion wrestler. His senior year, I always brag on him, but he won state championship at 145, didn't have an offensive point scored on him the entire year. Was voted USA Wrestling Most Exciting Wrestler of the Year. Goes to University of Pennsylvania, graduates from Wharton School of Business, while on top of it being a 2-time college All-American. Goes on, wrestles in the Olympic trials. Then my sister, she followed me to the University of Cincinnati, played college volleyball at the University of Cincinnati. So when I say my mom batted 1,000.
Dude, high achiever.
Right. 2,000. So
she batted 2,000.
And one of the main reasons I'm here today is obviously, thank you very much for inviting me, but it's just to give, there's so many kids out there today who are part of single parent homes. And I mean, you see it throughout the NBA. Or not the NBA, but professional sports. You knew like Kevin Durant motivated by his mother, right? How many guys do you know?
Moms always show up.
Right? And so for me, growing up and hearing, my mom never cried in front of me. She never made excuses in front of me. And now being older, I remember the phone calls that she would be on the phone with saying like, I'll try to get it to, she can't pay rent. Right. It's just like, so when you're around that environment, you kind of look back, you're like, man, I believe I was very fortunate because she never took it out on any of the kids. It wasn't anybody else's fault. Mm-hmm. She just said, this is my responsibility. This is what I have to do. So, I think for me, the message that I want to kind of put out there is that if you're a kid who potentially is in a struggling household and you don't understand it, take a step back, take a picture, right? And if you're a young man and maybe you have a struggling mother, sit there and let your motivation potentially be, my mom's crying today. I want to make sure in the rest of my life she never cries again. Like that's the stuff that motivated me.
Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of ranting off a little bit on that, but that was the dynamic of our family.
Right.
Our motivation was to take this woman who has given everything she can while also taking the time to also help other people.
Right.
I remember people coming into our living room and my mom would just sit there and have conversations and talking to them through their problems. Now looking back, I'm like, my mom had every problem in the world, but she's still helping. So, one of the stories, and you couldn't do this nowadays, but one of the stories I always tell about my mom is she did mammography and x-ray at the hospital in Westlake, Ohio. And, she had a pager back then. She'd get called in the middle of the night, and my sister and I would be sleeping with her on the couch. And that pager goes off, gets on the phone, calls in. She's got to go into work. Well, we're young, tiny. She'd pick us up, put us in the car, drive 20 minutes to work. We'd sleep in the waiting room or the employee lunchroom until her shift was done. She'd pick us back up, put us in this would be 3, 4 in the morning.
Talk about not making excuses.
So that was the one thing we understood very early. How can we as a family come up with any single excuse when the example that you need to live your life correctly is right here every single day, doing backbreaking stuff against all the odds, right? I mean, my mom should have quit. My mom should have done a bunch of other stuff. But, so when I say I'm a mama's boy, that's the story that I want to kind of deliver because it is heavily impacted the reasons I made to the NFL.
So that sounds like that was a defining moment in your
100%.
life, right? So why do you think, let me ask it this way. Do you think that made it easier for you to make it to the NFL, like from high school to college to the league, seeing everything that your mom did?
No doubt in my mind. So I would say the one thing that judo gave me was there wasn't a competitive atmosphere that I couldn't step into, any of us. So, I mean, in judo, it's you and the opponent. And your strategy has to affect this opponent. But it's not saying I'm going to step in and throw the guy, right? It's I'm going to get this guy to step here. And then I'm going to get him to return step. And then when he returns steps, now I'm going to initiate, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have that sort of mind and thinking, like, all I have to do is take this step here, and then I got to take this step here, and then this maybe happens, maybe it doesn't. So when my time, I got to the high school that we went to, Lakewood St. Edward High School. The funny thing is, I started as a quarterback. So my first 2 years in high school, I was a third string varsity quarterback. So one guy ended up being a 3-year starter at Air Force. The other guy ended up winning a Heisman Trophy. So,
Which one was that, Joe Burrow?
Troy Smith.
Oh, Troy Smith.
Troy Smith. Yeah.
Troy Smith, Ohio State.
So, Cleveland guy. When you step into that atmosphere, it is contagious. I mean, it's a commitment to excellence. It was an all male private Catholic school. Again, standards really high, something that we already fit in. But coming from, I would say, financially nothing, and then you kind of see other people who are a little more comfortable, you're like, man, these guys don't know the opportunity they have.
Right.
Right? So you got a hungry bear that has a buffet in front of them. You can only engorge yourself in it. So, but yeah, every step of the way. I think the other thing I have to say is, the level of coaching and the expectations that my mom established. Right. We were fortunate enough to understand what really good coaching is.
Yeah.
So I always also say that even though I didn't have a father, I had tons and tons of great male role models. I played for Hall of Fame high school coach John Gibbons, and the guy who's currently the head coach of St. Ed's was the defensive coordinator who actually switched me to safety my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
So I didn't play defense till my senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, I go on from there and play for Mark Antonio, who Mark Antonio just inducted in College Football Hall of Fame. And then my defensive coordinator was Pat Narduzzi, who's the head coach of Pitt. My position coach my first 3 years was Harlan Barnett, right? He was interim head coach last year for Michigan State. He was a 2-time All-American in college, 8-time NFL or 8-year NFL vet.
That's some good examples.
Man, and then played for Brian Kelly my last year, right? Go to my position coach. One of my favorite coaches of all time is Kerry Combs. He kind of started Cincinnati, went to Ohio State, coached for the Titans. Numerous first-round picks out of Ohio State when he was there, and then as a defensive player, you get drafted to Baltimore.
Right.
I mean,
They love defense.
dude, the funniest part about it was I remember going on my visit and sitting with Rex Ryan, and it's so surreal as a defensive player. Here is the best defensive organization since they've been started, right? I mean, and you got your Ray Lewis's, but when you step into a building like that, you feel it. I mean, and so being part of.
Was that a little intimidating?
Yes. I mean, your fear is it's kind of the same dynamic that I had with my mother.
Yeah.
You don't want to let your mother down, right?
Right.
That's my whole focus my entire life. Well, you get drafted as a defensive player in Baltimore. I mean, it's the same dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's meaningful to you. But no, yeah. So part of Coach Harbaugh's first draft class, that was with Flacco and Ray Rice and quite a few other really good players. Rex Ryan is my defensive coordinator. Chuck Pagano is our position coach. Mark Carrier, who's an NFL vet, was my safeties coach. Clarence Brooks, rest in peace. One of the best D-line coach and NFL coach personalities I think I've ever met. Come to Carolina, you play for Coach Rivera, Steve Wilkes, Sean McDermott. Bobby Babich is up there with the Buffalo Bills and Sean now. So I think my life prepared me for those experiences, and I think my life gave me a lot of things that was needed for some of those coaches and stuff. Now, my career wasn't as long as your guys's, and it wasn't as dynamic as your guys's, but I think without the struggles that we went through as a family, I don't think I would have ever made it. I don't think it's even possible.
I got a question for you, because you mentioned a couple things. You talked about, the fears or these, with judo, you set up this move and it's to get them to do this move. Mm-hmm. It's all about short-term goals.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it seems like you've had a lot of short-term goals that's kind of set you up, and like everything's been kind of planned. Mm-hmm. And you've just been fortunate to have like great coaches and things around you that's kind of allowed you to be where you're at as well. Is that what made you choose football over another path? Because you're not like a overbearing big guy either.
I'm not a world beater. Man.
No,
not a world beater, dude.
You call him.
Just say it. Just say it.
I'm a little safety. I'm not a big safety myself. And
Bullshit, dude, you're
a little guy. And so, you know what I'm saying, though? It's like, when did the short-term goals become like, oh, this is
so the interesting. And this is really funny. So football was completely forbidden from us.
Really?
Oh my God. So my dad
didn't like it.
Mom didn't like it. Dad definitely did. My dad, judo, your danger's all in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we were allowed to play baseball, maybe a little bit of basketball, but the focus was never to get hurt because we have judo, right?
Yeah.
So Dad passed away. Mm-hmm. We all start kind of diverting in our own different directions. And my brother sees that I'm a little angrier than most kids. I'm a little more rageful, maybe emotionally kind of unstable in certain ways. And he was like, man, this kid's got to play football. And the one thing he noticed was like, it didn't matter what I did as a kid. It was pick up a basketball, throw a baseball. I picked it up really fast. It was very athletic, right? So, so my brother signed as my guardian my first year playing football without my mom knowing it.
What year was like, how old were you?
So that was it, 6th grade, I think. So I don't know. But
that, 11,
like 11, 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
how old was your brother at that time?
He's 7 or 8 years older than me.
Okay,
yeah.
so
it worked out.
He was right
it worked
there.
out, right?
Okay,
So,
okay, got it.
So the funny thing is, when I kept my pads and helmets and stuff at one of my best friends, be like, hey mom, I'm going to my buddy Griffin's house. Like, so I would ride to football practice with a friend and then come back later in the evening, like, hey mom, how's it going? Just kind of, and there was just, there's a certain point in time you got to bring your stuff home to get washed.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, what the hell is this? And she was like, well, I'm playing football. She's like, oh God. So I think within the first, a couple weeks of playing, I break my wrist.
Uh-oh.
Right? Oh, it thought it was over. And
How'd she receive that?
so puts me in the car, takes me to the hospital, get an x-ray. And I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm like, this is over. I'm never going to do this again. And it's quiet. My mom's quiet. And, at that point, she had seen me practice a few times. And as I'm getting casted, my mom, she looks at the doctor and she says, so can it get any worse? He's like, yeah, if potentially, but not really. She goes, can he still play? And I looked at her. I'm like, what did you just say? And I think it was the first time in my mom's life that she's seen her kid, her child, or her youngest son find something that can express every ounce of his body.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically. So I always say football was the first vehicle in my life to allow me to express everything that I am. Right? From an intelligent person, from a cerebral person, right? Because of judo, the strategy, all that stuff, right? Yeah. From a leadership standpoint, right? Being the example of high standard, being a 5'10" half Japanese guy who's trying to create an atmosphere where none of your teammates can have excuses, right? Because if I'm willing to throw myself around and play as hard as possible, those guys need to understand that they are more athletic than me. They are bigger than me. They probably are more talented than me. But are they giving the same effort as me? Mm-hmm. And so, it's football is a very special thing to me because there aren't too many places in the world where you can truly express yourself in the way football allows you to express yourself.
No doubt about it.
So it's a beautiful sport. The team dynamic, I think, is one of the most important things because, as you guys know, you guys have played some of the greatest teams in NFL history. Being selfish doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're selfishly improving yourself, but for who?
Right.
Someone else. So, I think the biggest part of it was my mom always being the reason why I wanted to succeed allowed me to unselfishly be a football player.
Right.
And so that football is and now seeing my son run around playing, my son has brought back the innocence of it. Because as you know, the NFL, it's a tough business, man.
It is.
It's really hard. It's
cutthroat.
It's very cutthroat. But during that time, you forget the reasons why you played.
It was so fun.
Man.
It was just pure.
Man.
It was just the joy. We were just out there.
That's right.
And just because
you paid a lot of money to play a kid's game.
Yeah, you make it so far, you forget that part of it. And
That's
your kids bring you right back to
100%.
the joy. Because they don't
That's
know.
the beauty of it.
They just out there.
That's right.
Now, you mentioned we play for some. I don't know if the Saints are one of the greatest organizations.
I mean, hold on.
When you have rings.
So it's 9 teams that have started out 13 or better in the NFL's history. 9. I've been on 2, so
it's pretty good.
No,
the Saints were one of them. It's all right.
Anyway,
listen, I do have to question the strategy of the Saints sometimes. So like I said, I was with Steve the other day, right? And I always tell this funny story about Steve. So we used to play the Panthers in Baltimore, and the game plan going into the week was, this is what we're going to do with Steve Smith. We are going to tell him, hey, man, I hope you're having a good day. Hey, we're going to pat him on the back. Hey, wish you were on our team, because we started realizing if you piss Steve off,
it's very true.
It just goes up, right? And so when I get to Carolina, I'm like, man, you would never believe we were playing psychological warfare with you just to make sure you didn't get mad at us.
It's very true.
Yeah, so it's funny. They see it. Yeah, right. Yeah, I was gonna say we've seen a few of those clips, but it's funny, man. That Saints Panthers rivalry, that was something special. And I was part of, from 2008 to 2011, I think I was part of the most violent rivalry between the Ravens and Steelers.
Yeah.
That was a time and age of football that I don't think we'll ever see again. So
you're in Baltimore, you get their facility, you get in that locker room, and you're about 2-3 lockers down from Ray Lewis, right?
Yep.
Now, I've always had this idea in my head that when you see Ray Lewis, he's always, it's like he's always in Ray mode. Like he's always going to give you one of these great Leonidas speeches all the time.
That's all we know him at.
That's all we know him at. Now, you couple years with him. Your locker's like couple down from him. Is Ray just kind of like chilling sometimes and he just want to laugh and not give you a great speech? Or is he always on 10 as far as like speeches and preaching? And
I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, the dude ties his shoes a certain way. You're like, man, those shoes gonna make it? So Ray. So I go back to being a rookie, walking into that defense. Our defense was, Terrell Suggs.
yeah,
We have Haloti Ngata, Kelly Gregg, Justin Bannon, Jared Johnson. Right,
Double J.
Right, Double J, one of our favorites. Our linebackers are Bart Scott, Ray Lewis. Our safeties are Ed Reed, DeJuan Landry.
Yeah.
Corey Ivy was our nickel. We have Chris McAllister and Samari Roll. That's who I'm walking to. And then
ballers.
And that doesn't even include the guys that were on the depth chart, right? So, that locker room, I'm gonna get to Ray in a second, but that locker room was very special because we very rarely had individual meetings. Rex made it a point to have unit meetings all the time. And when you sit in that room and you hear Ray communicate with Ed, Ray communicate with Suggs, Jarrett, hey, did you see this? Hey, coaches aren't even running the meetings anymore. They're just playing the film and boom, you just hear this communication. You hear play recall. You hear all this stuff. But Jared Johnson was in charge of the circle of trust. And so in the unit room, we had this, whiteboard, and Ray and Jared and all those guys were kind of in the back corner. And we had this big circle and we had this one dot in the middle and everyone's name would be on there. And Jarrett was in charge of moving that dot closer to the middle of the circle of trust or moving you out. And so player accountability, it wasn't just Ray, it was everybody.
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
I like that.
I love that though, because you all know exactly what somebody's thinking all the time. The communication is even heightened even more.
And the
really
room hears it wasn't my fault. Second you hear that, what does Jarrett do? Take that dot, move you outside the circle, right? And so,
accountability.
Oh, dude, it's incredible experiences. But to hear the room like that, I mean, these are some of the best football players in NFL history. The way they respect and communicate with each other, and it was a very, very special place. And then the atmosphere that Steve Bisciotti creates as an organization. When you have breakfast, you have lunch, you have dinner, the entire organization sits and eats together. So it's not like executives go sit here in this room. And if you go to their facility, their dining hall, everyone sits with them. So you may sit with, the volunteer firefighters. You may sit with equipment managers. You may sit with the GM. You may sit, but the whole thing is they say that once a Raven, always a Raven. That's because you're family. I mean, you are truly bought into the family. And so, but back to Ray, there was no one who moved the needle more than him. And there was no one who, once you earned his respect, I mean, he treated you like a brother. I mean, everybody calls him Unc, right? Because he's 10 times older than everybody else, right? But the second you earned his respect, I mean, you earned his respect for a lifetime. And I've still keep in contact with Ray throughout the years. Same thing with Ed. Ed was another guy. Different dynamic, a little quieter, a little more out there. But he's one of those, Ed's been like a big brother to me.
So coming from college, University of Cincinnati, number one, how different was that coming from University of Cincinnati, where not everybody's paying attention to what you're doing on the football field, to where now you're in Baltimore? All right. And then number two, what did they tell you during your draft process? like Haruki Nakamura, your draft is great or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Give me that process.
So first of all, I want to talk about the University of Cincinnati a little bit. It is the greatest place for great football players who are maybe a little shorter, maybe a little slower, maybe great football players that want to be an overachiever.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of Jason Kelsey, Travis Kelsey, my freshman year, we had Trent Cole.
You got Sauce Gardner right now, bro.
Right now, Sauce. But like my freshman year, come into University of Cincinnati, we had Trent Cole, Mike Wright, Super Bowl champion in New England, Andre Frazier, Super Bowl champ with the Steelers. Tywan Hagler, Super Bowl champ with the Colts. Like, Cincinnati has always had great football players, but maybe not big enough for a Big Ten or this and that. So it already had the overachiever feeling of that dynamic, which is it's the correlation between that and the NFL. It's very similar. You're not getting Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner came in as I think maybe not even a star. It was like a 1-star. And next thing you know, he has a prestigious career, as someone who never gave up a touchdown in college, his college career. So, going through that draft process, I knew I was a good football player. I knew I was probably a harder worker than everybody else because I had to, right? 5'10", half Japanese. It's, coming out of high school, still have videotape, right? You're sending videos out, copies of videos back in the day. So, when you look at a roster, you see Haruki Nakamura, 5'10", you're like, nope. Like, let's be real, right? Let's be honest.
Discriminate you just off
Let's
name.
Let's be real about it.
We're not gonna do that.
I already had a pretty thick skin as well, but going through that draft, I ended up getting invited to the Hula Bowl. So I was first team All Big East player, got invited to the Hula Bowl, right? So, at that point, I had not been invited to the combine, which is fine, that's the way it works. But I ended up winning the skill MVP of that game. I had a pick, fumble recovery, a bunch of tackles and stuff, flying around the field because I'm like, this might be the last time I ever play football.
Yeah, this is your chance.
And so I'm thinking, I'm going to get invited to the combine. That time comes and goes, no invite to the combine. I'm like, it's over. It's not going to work. But then I started getting a few invites to, I had my pro day, but then got an invite to go visit Baltimore. And, I would say it went exactly what you expect. They walk in the room, like, yeah, this guy's small. They'll tell you to your face, you're a little shorter. You're a little this. And that's when you start realizing, like, yeah, I've got a lot of uphill. But if I'm going to do this, there's a lot I got to fight. And I don't know if there was necessarily a grade that I was given, but I was told, like, you are a good enough football player to play. And that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And so, I was obviously Baltimore had quite a few draft picks and getting drafted in the 6th round. Hell, you would have thought I got drafted in the 1st round. Having that experience, I was talking, I get the phone call and Ozzy's talking to me and he goes, hey, because most of that organization was the same organization. I mean, front office and everything that was with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
even in 2008 since they moved, same exact group, all the same executives. And so one of the guys was actually an alumni from my high school, and he was the president at the time of public relations. And so I'm talking to Ozzy.
Ozzy Newsome.
Yep, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ozzy Newsome.
It's all right.
Talk to Coach Harbaugh. Right. Talking to Coach Harbaugh, and then Ozzy gets back on the phone. And he says, "Hey, somebody wants to talk to you." And at that time, they hadn't told me they were just having a conversation. And Kevin Byrne gets on the phone, and Kevin Byrne's a Lakewood St. Edward High School alumni, Cleveland, Ohio native. And he goes, "Hey, Haruki, how you doing?" I'm like, "It's been a long day. It's been blah, blah, blah." You know how those days. And he goes, "Well," he's like, "your day's about to get better." He goes, "From one St. Edward Eagle to another, welcome to the Baltimore Ravens." And dude, I'm outside, my family's inside watching the TV, and they see my name go across, and I can hear them screaming. I'm bawling. Oh my gosh, could have died there, right? I mean, my life had been completed. But that process is exactly what you kind of expect. Like, if you're not a tall guy, you're not a big guy, you're not, I wasn't slow, I was quicker than fast. It's going to be hard, especially what they say to your face.
No doubt.
Right? I mean, it just seems like the honesty, or whatever you want to call it. It's very in your face, and
I don't think people understand or realize that when you're undersized or you're small, like that whole process, that interview process that you go through, it's
you are
Kinda
judged.
brutal. You just like,
Yeah.
I think it's been really interesting because the common fan has now gotten to see some of the hard knock stuff. And so even with the Giants this past year or some like, they're like seeing some of the offseason, like, man, the way they talk about people is like
You walk
kind
in,
of.
hey,
So
playbook. They wanna
I mean,
follow.
let's be real. I mean, we're commodities.
That's
I mean,
it.
you are removed.
That's it.
And I hate to say it this way, but the human entity is completely removed. You are now a commodity, right? Like what happens to a sick cow? What happens to a racehorse that breaks a leg?
Put them down.
Yeah.
Right?
What
And
have you done for
that's
me
the
lately?
nature. That's the nature of this business. And it's so funny. You realize it's not like that anywhere else in the world. I mean, the business world. We'll get to that stuff at some point. But it's interesting to hear when you have these conversations with people outside of our world.
Yeah.
Like us, we get it. I mean, it comes off the tongue and everybody understands. But when you try to have that conversation with people who, not all of us make millions of dollars every single. And the first thing they say, "Oh, you made all these millions and millions and millions," and you start breaking down what actually went into that stuff. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I never would have thought."
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it.
So tell me this. So when you came here to Carolina, because we're here, B of A, you've been in this locker room.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for your first chance and opportunity to become like a full-time starter and on a Panthers defense that featured a young Luke Kuechly?
Man.
Thomas Davis. I think Josh Norman had just gotten there too.
I think Josh. Yeah, I think
Josh didn't
Josh
become Josh J.
until the year. Yeah. So this is my Luke Kuechly story. So I just come from an NFL locker room, especially with Ray Lewis. We talk about Ray earlier.
Mm-hmm.
13 at that time, 14-year NFL veteran, already the best that's ever played the position. So from a knowledge standpoint, and I'm telling you, we'd be watching film or in a game, you just hear his communication of calling out plays, all this. It was just you're like, there's no one else in the world that could ever do this, right? And as a rookie, you run into a Luke Kuechly, who is freakishly athletic.
He
We all
is.
know that, right? Freakishly athletic.
People don't give him enough credit for that.
Not
No.
at all.
Not,
Not at
it
all.
is. It's watching him work out. Now I always talk about the box jumps he used to do. Incredible. It's nothing like
agree.
it. Nothing
I
like
agree.
it.
That's a whole
But
segment just
that's
on his box jump.
just on Luke.
Like,
Yeah.
Very impressive.
But then, as everybody's already kind of documented, him calling out play, he was doing that as like a first week rookie.
Really?
Man, his
That's so
recall,
impressive.
his ability to grasp everything that you needed to be one of the. That first year, it was incredible. I mean, not that he's still making rookie mistakes and all stuff, but he was already there. And to go from Ray to that and see this as, I called Chad Steele, who's the president of the PR for the Ravens. I remember calling him, because we all have a great relationship with Ray. And I remember telling him, like, hey, this kid's already there. And they're, whatever. I'm like, no. And then obviously look what happened the next 8 years.
Yeah.
He became arguably the best linebacker in NFL history.
Yes.
So, my first year, I broke my leg my second year in the NFL, and there's no doubt, as you know, major injuries, it starts the clock, right?
Right.
It starts ticking a little bit faster. So I broke my leg my second year in Baltimore and ended up playing, my third and fourth year in Baltimore. But when you have a major injury, potentially your body can start overcompensating. That's exactly what happened. So by the time I got to Carolina, my body was pretty worn out. We had already, rookie year, played at the AFC Championship game. Second year, break my leg going through that. Second year, we're in the playoffs again. My last year in Baltimore, we're playing the AFC Championship game again against New England Patriots. So I had a lot of mileage.
A lot of
miles.
In a short period of time.
In a very short period of time. Now, wouldn't change it for anything else. It's
Yeah.
an experience of a lifetime. But, I get to Carolina. I mean, that first year, I think I finished the year on IR with I tore my groin. Yeah. And the thing was, being a stubborn, excuse guy.
You just don't tear it
I
one time.
played,
It's usually stuff that
I
leads to
played the
that.
entire year that way.
Yeah.
And my junior, I did it my junior year in college. I played with a stress fracture in my leg the entire season. So I'm thinking like I can just put one of the big as you guys know, I didn't have the maturity to be able to say I need to take care of this now because you fear it's going to be gone tomorrow, right? So that's it. And then that's my time in Carolina wasn't necessarily the greatest, but I mean, it brought me to a place that I call home now.
That's true.
So
Shall we talk about Charlotte's a beautiful place?
If you're going to live in North Carolina.
I came here in
Charlotte's
2015. We start 13-0, 14-0. 14-0. Amazing season.
You guys are on fire.
We were on fire that year.
On fire.
And then I think it was like maybe the 8th, 9th game of the season, I tore my ACL. Sit down about 2 weeks, and I come back.
I don't know why he thought
Crazy,
he was gonna be able to
dude.
play on a torn ACL.
Hey, dude, you guys,
He wanted to give
that's
it
the
up.
one thing both of you
I
guys.
still started.
You did.
Torn ACL. I'm still starting in the National Football League with a torn ACL.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Thinking that I could do it, and kind of like you said, stubborn, like, no, I can play through this. I turned my ACL last game, regular season game, and I'm just like, man, it's over. It's year 13, and I'm looking back like, well, it's been real. I had a great career, and I was able to look back on what I had accomplished. Now, how do you feel about what you've accomplished? When you came here, you had a lot of miles, preseason, got a concussion,
Yep.
right? So how do you feel about the career you had, even though it wasn't as long as you probably would have wanted?
It's interesting. I have a few accolades that I'm very proud of,
Like what are those accolades?
So one of them, I'm going to go back to college. I was the MVP of our team my senior year. And it was just seeing the growth of University of Cincinnati being part of that. And then getting to Baltimore where
That was that Brian Kelly.
You
guys are
we were
really
the
good,
first.
yeah.
We were the first 10 win team in 50 years. At the University of Cincinnati. It's just something. It was just process of building. Being part of Baltimore. Harbaugh's first draft class. They had an all-star team the year before. Jonathan Ogden retires. They think it's a rebuilding year. We go to the AFC Championship game my first year there. Like always being part of like a building process. It even goes back to my time in high school. My high school hadn't been to the state championship since 1986, and in 2004 we made it. It's just like I've always fortunately been part of processes that are trying, and it does take high quality people. It takes very unselfish people because unfortunately the effort that you're going to give in football is going to be at the detriment of you more often than not. And so when I look back, I did growing up in Elyria, Ohio, 900 square foot apartment. I freaking achieved everything you could possibly achieve. I think the one thing I look back on, and I've had this conversation quite a bit. I think the one thing I kind of look back on, and I do regret, was allowing. I don't even know if this is the way to put it, but when I got hurt, it just like you said, I knew I was done.
Yeah.
When I took that knee to the head, and I spent 4 years of rehabbing after that, just trying to get myself back together because I felt like I couldn't put a sentence together. I'd still deal with headaches. Oh yeah, still deal with headaches on a daily basis. There was just all this stuff. My anger was towards myself in the sense like, how could I let myself get to this point? How could I allow myself to do this? And there's, when you're done, and this is I guess we can go into the next segment of, post-career, the decompressing period of after you're done is a lot. There is a lot to that. Because if you think about how long we've probably been playing for. Think about how many hours of work that you put in and things that you suppress, right? There's a lot that goes into being successful because what do you have to do? You got to put pain aside. You got to put these bad thoughts aside. At some point in time, that stuff, if you have the time to sit and reflect and think about it, you're like, holy, how much has been buried? Excuse my language. Sorry.
No,
but
you're good.
How much has been buried here?
Yeah.
And I think that's every single football player.
Yes.
I think it's
Absolutely.
in their own different way. And I don't try to compare myself to anybody else, but I think that's something that I've learned in my healing process of being retired and kind of trying to turn the corner with concussion stuff. Like everyone has their stuff that's suppressed. It is hard. It is really, really hard to play football. Tom Brady comes and says, choose to play football because it's hard. It's not easy. You have to earn everything. And not only are you earning it physically, you're earning it because you're trying to gain respect from other men who are trying to achieve the same thing. That level of respect is hard to find, right? There's usually a guy on top, right? Especially in the corporate world, there's the guy on top, and everybody else just does what the guy on top does. or tells them to do. But in this world, really, a head coach is at the mercy of the team that commits to whatever his mission is. And that right there, that commitment between the bond of the players is so vital. And so, you are trying to earn something that is really difficult, because respect, it is earned. It is something that if you don't do the right things, more than likely you're not going to be part of that.
Respect is always earned, never given.
Yeah, that's right.
The best thing about football.
That's right.
Now, post-football, you've had some really great investment stories and things of that nature, and that's kind of what you really kind of found your way in. So tell me how you got into it, and kind of tell us a couple of things that you have been successful in. Go ahead.
So what I'll say is, I think, like most of us, they started doing a lot better job of educating guys before they're done playing.
Yeah.
Preparation for after. Having a good financial advisor, potentially having not necessarily a team of lawyers, but someone in law that can guide you through stuff as post-career, especially when things that are unexpected happen. Going through, whether it's understanding what, insurance is for your playing career, like if you have a career-ending injury, having people help you plan, or teach you to plan, or maybe even just do it for you, just stuff that you don't understand. The trust that it takes and the people that it takes in order to allow yourself to transition out of the NFL is really important. And I think if, we've heard all these horror stories going the other way, right? You get bad advisors who,
Steal.
Yeah. And
Feel bad for my fellow brethren that they don't get the best advice.
oh my
Then they
gosh,
end up going
Ed
through-
Reed.
Yeah.
That's
I feel bad for him.
forget football. Ed was the reason. Brad Schwartz at Legacy Capital, who is a branch of Ameriprise. Ed introduced me to Brad. It was my second year in the NFL. I've been with him for 15, 16 years.
So important to have that. Great
Oh
team
man,
around.
having the right CPA. I had the same CPA for Fred Keith and Associates out in Kentucky and Cincinnati area. Had him for 11 years. Once you're part of that stuff and you find the right people, it makes transition here. And for what I went through after I was done, it allowed me to truly just focus on my health. And that was something that I really needed to do. And so, fortunately, I have a brother who graduated from Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. So I didn't have to go back to get my MBA. Unfortunately, I had a guy who was a phone call away and, connected and tied in. And, just being part of some of the stuff that he's been a part of, and he's included me. And then, meeting other people who explain, what risk is versus saying, hey, this is a good idea. It's just, what's risk? And what risks are you willing to take? So, I haven't, because of certain things, I haven't been able to work the 9 to 5. And to be honest with you, there are days where I don't have the mental capacity to even think about it. But when you have a team around you that is always looking for the best interest, it is so vital and important. So I give a lot of where I'm at today to the people that I had built relationships before I was even done.
Yeah. So who are some of those people? Who are some of those people on your team?
Yeah, so Brad, like I said, Brad Schwartz, they're based out of Baltimore. Originally, it was an Ameriprise branch. He still does the advising through Ameriprise, but it's now Legacy Capital. John Lorenz going through the disability process, post NFL. That is not easy.
Oh no,
it is, and I get it. Like, looking back, I think when you're struggling and you're just trying to figure things out, like you're like, if I'm ever going to get better, if I'm ever going to, are these things going to go away? Having someone who understands how to take care of certain things that you don't think about, you can just focus on yourself. That's really important. There's countless doctors that I've been through, but that's just a handful of guys.
I want to know what venture right now has Haruki Nakamura excited? Like, what gives you, because you talked about the struggles with health, the mental capacity. I can't just do it 9 to 5, but something gets you up and going every day. And I know it's your mom, but what is this venture right now?
being a dad.
Yeah.
I think
I knew
you already knew I was
See,
going to go
that's
there.
why I-
And I
Your
think,
face lit up when you said
No,
it.
no, no.
though.
yeah,
I knew that.
because you know,
said it. I
I'm
like
shoot,
that.
I'm not going to get emotional about this, but you know, so as much as I say I was not affected by not having a dad,
Yeah.
right? I was guided by a single parent mother. You know, I look at my kids today, and you know, there's a few times, especially when I was done, because again, when I say I was in a really bad place, it was a really bad place. But there are so many times where I look at my kids and I couldn't imagine my kids growing up without a dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like now looking at, because I know what that felt like. I know what that, and I always say that I had some of the best male role models that a kid could ever have in a lifetime. And it's, I mean, countless and countless. But having that bond as a father with a daughter, I have a 15-year-old daughter, Hina Rose, right? I have a 12-year-old son, Hayden Robert. And then I've got, you know, I got an 8-month-old, and her name's Haven, and I got a beautiful wife. You know, it's just the understanding the presence, like the importance of that presence, not just for them, but for yourself, to be part of something really, really, really good. You know, because I mean, there's post-career, we could all be lost. I mean, it's very easy for us to get lost. Again, we talked about it before.
Right.
There's not too many places in the world that's like an NFL locker room, right? I mean,
Nothing like it.
nothing like it. You can search as much as you want, won't
Sure.
find it. So having that community that's within your house, it's special. And so, you know, getting up every single day, my motivation is my kids and my wife. I mean, it is. I'm so fortunate to kind of go through the things that I've gone through and be where I'm at today. I don't take it for granted in any way, shape, or form. I've also got a crew here of best friends, you know, from college that actually live here in town, and it's just, you know, be able to shoot a little bit, talk about some stupid stuff he did. You know, it's a special thing because, I mean, we're men. We got to be stoic. We got to be brave and proud and courageous for your family. Man, we got to let our hair down a little bit too.
No
you
doubt.
know, we got to let the feelings out. And so having that, and then like we talked about before, you know, Charlotte has this huge collection of retired professional football players.
Right.
It is. I mean, there's tons and tons of guys here. But then you also start realizing, like, this is NASCAR country.
Yep.
There's tons. Charlotte,
Especially where you're at.
yeah, and so, you know, you start reaching out and branching out a little bit, and you start realizing, again, one person away from meeting some spectacular human being that has their own story, their own path, and something that's a little different. You know, my kids have brought me into different relationships now, because that's who you usually meet a lot of people through, where it's been special. So, but yeah, my kids are special. My family's special. You know, my entire family's special. You know, we're all successful on our own right. And, you know, and I think that family bond's got to come back. I think there's a lot of kids in America right now who don't have that experience, and maybe part of it is because two parents have to work all the time, and you don't have that. But you know, at the end of the day, it's if you're not doing things for your family, you really, I mean, it can be a very empty life.
So keeping that same thing going about family, and you talked about having tons of great male role models and people helping you along your way in your journey of life. Mount Rushmore. Who would be on your personal Mount Rushmore?
You get 4.
Man. Oh,
And it could be anybody.
Well, listen,
It could be
mom's
anybody.
mom's number one.
Mom's number one.
She's gonna be in the middle of the entire thing.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Greg Urbis, who is, so he's in Ohio High School Hall of Fame for wrestling. He's one of the most decorated wrestling coaches, high school wrestling coaches in the entire country. And, you know, I almost quit football after my sophomore year because I'm a third string varsity quarterback.
Yeah.
I got two guys in front of me that are really good. And at the time, I'm thinking, I'm just a quarterback. I can't play in front of these guys. And as you know, you're just a dumb kid who doesn't know there's other opportunities. So I actually, I decided to quit, and I was going to focus on baseball and football, or wrestling. And especially with my brother, I was like, my brother did this. I'm more athletic than him. I'm whatever, right? And he's done this for tons and tons of guys that have come through that high school. But he made a personal impact on me where, he came and visited me at my brother's at now in-laws, but at the time girlfriend's house, and sat me down. He goes, "Hey, heard you quit football." I'm like, "Yeah, I can't." I'm like, "Coach, I got to find a way to go to school for free. I'm not an academic. Yeah. I'm not an academically sound person. Not stupid, just not driven by school." And I was like, I got my mom can't afford me to go to school, so he slaps me kind of upside the head and goes, "First of all," he was like, "I drove you to a baseball game, watched you drop pop fly. You're not playing baseball, right?" He goes, "You're as athletically gifted as a wrestler that's ever come through St. Edward High School." He goes, "You hate it." He goes,
"You don't even like wrestling."
No, right? He goes, "But I've never seen anybody play football the way you play football." And he goes, I play quarterback. He goes, "Exactly. I've never seen anybody play quarterback the way you play quarterback." He goes, "Did you have a conversation with the coaches?" I go, "Nope." So you didn't realize they're switching you to wide receiver? You didn't realize? I'm like, "Oh, really?" So Coach Urbis is the reason why I continue to play football and reestablish that. So he's up there. So my mom, Coach Urbis. Next one's Kerry Combs. I think Kerry Combs, he's currently the cornerbacks coach at the University of Cincinnati and special teams coordinator there. He comes in, Mark D'Antonio and staff go to Michigan State. So, during that time, you're like, "I committed to you." They leave. It's a heartbreaking thing. What?
You still stuck there?
Yeah, stuck there, right? Yeah. So then, Brian Kelly comes in, and that dude, man, he brought an energy that I never would have expected. I would say D'Antonio taught us to be barbaric, and Brian Kelly taught you how to win. And so he hires. So I go from Pat Narduzzi, my defensive coordinator, and Coach D'Antonio really was my position coach, and then Harlan Barnett, also the position coach. I go from this extreme knowledge of wealth, to Kerry Combs. And the reason I put Kerry Combs up there, he was the first person in my entire life that told me and made me understood, be who you are, because who you are is good enough. Mm-hmm. And he says that saying all the time. It's such a special saying, because when you're my size and stature, you're beating yourself up a little bit. Like, can I do this? And he was the first time my entire career, my entire life up to that point, my senior year in college, where I heard someone say, "Be who you are is good enough." And it was so impactful and so powerful, because there's nothing more important in life than having some self-belief.
Yeah, no doubt
because
about it.
Right? No one else.
That's the foundation for it starts.
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, the most important conversation is the one you have with yourself.
Always.
And hopefully not out loud in front of everybody, but
always
it's up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last one, I'm going to put the Nakamura name up there. And I know that's a group of people, but being a Nakamura is so special.
Yeah.
And so I know that's, like I said, it's a collection of people, but I would put my last name up there. And the reason I believe, because that entire family dynamic, we struggled through so much, but collectively, we all found our own path. We all found our judo, right? We always talk about, we all found our own individual judo. And so, that's my Mount Rushmore. A little different than most people's Mount Rushmore.
No, I like that though. We've never had anyone say, because we've asked that question a couple times, and people, it's just mom, dad, cousin, sister, brother, one person individually, but no one has ever put the family name.
I love that. Yeah. I just wrote that down. We all found our own judo.
We all found our own judo.
That's right.
I like that you put the whole name. It's just like, that's
something I want my kids to want to say.
Yeah.
They
probably the family name.
Yeah, my kids. I'll say this. I don't think my kids get that.
I know my kids, but I hope they say it, but I know they probably not.
Yeah.
Ruki, I appreciate you coming on.
Man, thank you for having me.
I didn't know a lot about you, and then coming on here and you talk and bless us with just some of the judo stories and everything.
I think that's the main reason I want to get out here, because, like I said, it's a special story. It is a story that should be told.
It's a great story.
And I think more than anything, it represents my family.
Yeah.
And the dynamic of coming through a tough situation, and we've been very fortunate.
I think your pops would be proud.
Yeah, I
Not
hope
only
so.
that, but it's a lot of love out here for all the mama's boys out here.
Oh, yeah.
Mama's
Oh,
boys.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all the mama's boys out here.
That's right.
There we
That's
go.
right.
Is that why I see teardrop come right
Yes.
now? Mama's
Yes,
boys.
yes. All right, man. Get us out of here, dog.
All right. I'm Peanut Tillman. That's my guy, Roman Harper, AKA I'm a work wife. That's Ruki. Thank y'all for tuning in. Give us a 5-star rating. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts.
A review?
Share, like, subscribe,
Yeah.
follow,
Comment.
Yeah. Am I doing this or you doing this?
We doing this.
Hey, we appreciate y'all. Check us out on our NFL YouTube channel. And hey, that's a wrap. This is the NFL Player Second Act Podcast. I'm Peanut.